have it!
Medeiros is going to get it.
Look at the toss! They haven't got it!
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such up. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's gonna do it! Big Barry!
Hello and welcome back to the Radical Race Series 2023 Season 2. We've crossed over the halfway mark of this season and we're very much near to the end of the American start to this season. Slightly odd, in fact. We're here at the Daytona International Speedway, the final of the North American races here this season, for what could well be a bit of a slipstream fest, as we were talking about a little bit earlier on. The famous road course, normally used in January, at the very start of the motorsport season, and not a lot after that. But we're here in late April, and it's very exciting to be here. My name is Ewan O'Leary, alongside James Parfitt once again for this evening. And you think it's going to be a bit of a slipstream fest, James? I'm not quite so sure, but there's certainly going to be a lot of slipstream going on, and maybe even a close finish to boot as well.
Yeah, I personally think it will be. Partly just because obviously we know how much grip the SR8's got, we know how good they are. I think it could be a swapping backwards and forwards as it goes on throughout the race. Now, you know, that optimistic side of me hopes that it isn't, but I've got a funny feeling coming out of 7 to the run to the bus stop chicane, and then from 11 right the way through to turn 1, I think it's going to be just swapping backwards and forwards. And if it's anything like the UK sim races on Tuesday, where they went across the line basically within the top 6 of about 0.2 of a second, I think this could be an interesting one. But let's see what happens and see how we get on.
Yeah, let's see. Mazda Racing, of course, very, very different to this form indeed, and so we could well see something very different. Let's have a look at the championship standings first of all, with Paul Crabb currently leading those, 5 points ahead of Mike Bousson. Simon Edwards has jumped up to 3rd, ahead of John McCutchinson. Paul LeMay and Dan Webster, all within 15 points, by the way, of the overall lead in the standings. Luke Maxwell down in 7th, ahead of Paul Clark, who's not here tonight. Sergio de la Cruz is in 9th, ahead of Robert Woodward, who rounds out the top 10. George Gonzaga is in 11th, ahead of Michael LeMay. Then it is Paul Godden. Phil Glover and Patrick Charlton both inside the top 15. Seth Brown in 16th, ahead of Darrell Taylor. Wayne Palmer is in 18th, ahead of Jamie Bird. David Beasley rounding out the top 20. Then we've got Phil Johnson on the same points, in 20th as well, I guess. Martina Ward 22nd, ahead of Colin Wynn. Dave Kirkman there as well. James Child, Andy Hugo, Gary Torr, Graham Brown, David Rodston, Damien G, Ben Underdown, who made an appearance last week, and Colin Campbell, who hasn't scored any points, as have a number of those down at the bottom of the championship standings. It's very, very close. One of the most wide open Radical Race series that I can remember for quite some time.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think that's got a lot to do with the sprint and feature format bringing in that they've just brought in for the whole of this season. We have just gone into qualifying as well, so we'll keep an eye on that one. But I think personally it's what's made this series. We have seen some amazing racing this year from this series, like absolutely incredible. And I think all in all that I don't think it's going to stop. Like, we've got 13 cars on track at the moment, but I just think that it will still provide top racing. I don't think we're going to struggle at all. We've got Paul LeMay, Simon Edwards, Luke Maxwell in here, Mike Bousson and Paul Crabb. So what more could we ask for, really, as we go into a Thursday evening?
Absolutely. It's going to be very, very interesting indeed. As I said, Paul Clark earlier messaged in Discord to say that he's not going to be here. Well, because he's in Spain at the moment for a couple of days. So he won't be here tonight, but he will score a few points in the championship standings, by the way. I think he'll score 37, and those will be added to his score. But even with those added, he would still be 7 points behind Paul Crabb, even now. And that's before we've even gotten on with this evening. So it might not be great news for him. Speaking of Paul Crabb, he is back tonight after a week off at VIR. We mentioned many times last week that it was probably the best week he could have had to be absent. John McCutcheon and Dan Webster both using that week as a drop round, as it turned out. Mike Bousson and Simon Edwards having decent ones, as did Paul LeMay actually. Luke Maxwell unfortunately struggling in race 2 once again. But it wasn't a bad evening of racing to say, and not a bad one to miss either for Paul Crabb, because he does still lead the standings, albeit by only 5 points.
Yeah, he was helped quite a lot though, wasn't he? There was a few incidents involving the top drivers as well. McCutcheon, Webster all had it coming together. So there was a few bits. I do want to shout out to Paul Clark. He's currently sat in Barcelona going to a couple of Bruce Springsteen gigs. And he's posted a lovely picture of him and his wife, and they were sat at a restaurant eating on Twitter there for the Hi-Fi Lounge as well. So, yeah, a big shout out to Paul. He's currently in Barcelona enjoying the sun. And I believe, was it Paul Crabb was in Mallorca? Was it Mallorca last week? No, Atlanta, wasn't he?
I don't know.
Can't remember where he said he was. Oh,
I just knew he wasn't here.
Yeah, I'm sure he said he was in Mallorca, Atlanta, somewhere. Anyway, but back to tonight's action. I think it's going to be a classic. He's back on track now, along with the likes of Simon Edwards. You know, Simon still not loving the car, but he's doing a good job in it.
He is doing a good job in it. I mean, he's done so well in previous seasons, of course. He's not a 5-time champion of this series for no reason. Of course, some of those not coming in this car, and it came in the more modern version. However, we're back to the older car now, and I have to say we thoroughly enjoyed it up in the commentary booth. Not everyone on the circuit has, but that doesn't matter too much to us. We've still got the good rating. A few less cars on the grid actually this round than we've seen previously, and we'll see how that affects the racing as well, especially in the reverse grid race. But that all remains to play out. As you can see, though, the first lap times are about to be complete. It's a relatively long lap around here in these cars. Certainly not as long as VIR, but it's over a minute and a half, quite considerably. Paul Crabb's going to come up towards the line first to set the benchmark for everybody here, but it's not as good as Simon Edwards, who will go over the line to the top immediately, and it doesn't look like anyone can really get near them. Can't see any purple sectors apart from those two.
No, they're in a different... It's been weird this season. Crabb's done really well, but Edwards, who doesn't like the car, has done exceedingly well. And Paul LeMay, as we know, has had a standout season. So I'm expecting these times to come around a bit. I just want to see what Paul's going to do now. He's just going over the line. Currently at the moment, Gonzaga goes into third place. And we'll see what LeMay can do. He's only done a 142.3. So maybe not loving this track as much as others, should we say. But onwards and upwards, I think he can still do a job. And as I say, I think that draft is going to play a massive effect. I know you're apprehensive, Ewan. I know you don't think it might do. But I've got a funny feeling it's going to play a bigger part than we think.
No, I certainly agree. It's going to play a big part in this one. I just don't know whether we're going to get all of the cars in a line for the whole of the race, like you would see in the Masters, for example. Which is a really crazy racing around this kind of circuit in those kind of cars. But we're not quite going to see that. But I do think we could get very, very interesting finale to one of these. The thing about Daytona is that there are just about enough corners to break the slipstream, to break the draft for a leader. So that's why that's just the only reason why I don't think it will be a complete train for the entire time. But we will see. At least, we will see the opportunity, I should say, for somebody to get away out front. At the moment, it looks like it's going to be Simon Edwards. He goes over the line again, and he'll go faster again. Looks pretty untouchable so far in this session.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so strange with Simon. It's so strange. We know he runs a relatively skinny wing, if any wing at all in these cars. But it just seems like he almost reminds me of like PB&J. Like he just goes together with it. He doesn't like it, but he just fits in it, doesn't he? It's so strange for a man that doesn't like the car. And he's kind of documented so many times he doesn't like this car, but he is just like a PB&J sandwich. They just go together so well, and he does a stellar job in it. I don't understand why he doesn't like it, really.
Well, I don't really know. You do often hear the phrase, obviously, if you're enjoying yourself, you're more likely to do well. But that's clearly not the case for Simon Edwards. He can clearly power through and for whatever reason, he has fit well with his car once again, and he's currently leading this session. Paul Crabb has gone purple in Sector 2 here to try and get close to him, but Simon Edwards also improving in the second half of this lap now. And there was only a few more corners for Crabb to actually gain any more time there, and I don't think there is going to be enough time for him to overhaul this one. But good qualifying so far from Seth Brown, I believe that is, who's up into third place right now. And that is a very strong qualifying from a driver we've not seen all that much of this season.
No, he's normally pottering around the midfield, Seth, and does the, obviously, sometimes gets involved in a few little incidents and ta-ta-tas as Crabb does go quicker, but no, doesn't move up the time entirely. Luke Maxwell is all green across the board, and so is David Beasley currently, but we'll see what Luke can do. It's been a weird one with Seth because he has been relatively mid-pack, maybe sort of later pack, down the back end, but he just, another one that seems to be doing really well here. It's quite almost bizarre how some drivers can get the car to work at some tracks. Maxwell goes into second, the second man to break the 140s. So that should be an interesting one. And there is Seth, of course, improving again. So could he be up into third place? Oh, no,
not quite. No.
Not quite. But
just under a tenth down, but it's not bad at all. Fourth place in this one for Seth Brown is not bad at all. Paul Godden goes over the line into 8th place, and that just leaves us with Phil Glover to come over the line here. Only needs a couple of tenths of a second to jump over Phil Jocelyn there, and he'll be moving himself to the inside of the 6th row. We will wait and see, and we'll wait and see what happens on the start here. I didn't actually see confirmation of whether we'll be doing a standing or rolling start here today, because obviously if we did a standing start, everyone would all down the banking as the lights go out, and there'd be cars everywhere. So I don't know whether that's going to be the case, or whether we're going to go for the slightly more sensible rolling start, which it may well be the case, but I didn't see confirmation of either, to be fair.
No, I can't help you out with that one. Unfortunately, I did not. Yeah, no, I haven't seen anything. So I'm going to presume that they're going to be running as normal. Would they run as normal? Do you think?
I don't know. I just don't think a standing start's possible on this circuit, really, because of the banking. But it also depends where iRacing put the cars. I guess it's not. They're never going to change the where they put. They could put it on the flatter bit, just coming out of NASCAR Turn 4 and towards the trioval, I suppose. But I don't think iRacing have implemented that. So it is going to be a case of either falling down the banking or we are going to get a rolling start. Let's not forget we did get a rolling start at Zandvoort, just by accident more than anything.
That wasn't on purpose, was it? Poor Darrell had a bit of a nightmare.
No, it wasn't on purpose. But we have done it before, so I would imagine that will be the case. We might well have a full formation lap as well.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
We certainly did last time.
Yeah, something to be implemented, I think. Full formation lap, full rolling start. But we're going to find out in about 10 seconds. So, yeah, let's see what happens. I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a classic. It's going to be a classic one.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a good race. As I said earlier, we're crossed over the halfway mark of this season now. Things are going to start to get a bit serious. On the front, though, Simon Edwards on pole for this one alongside Luke Maxwell. We are indeed standing on the start-finish line there, so let's see what happens here. Paul Crabb will be third ahead of Seth Brown, and Judge Gonzaga inside the top 5. Mike Booston sixth ahead of Paul LeMay. Paul Godden is in 8th place with Wayne Palmer and Darrell Taylor inside the top 10. Phil Jocelyn and Phil Glover on the last full row ahead of David Beasley, who's on row 7 on his own down the back at 13th position back there. No pace car in front of the field here. Standing start up on the banking. This is going to be quite an experience for these drivers. The rear-wheel drive cars, of course, and it's difficult to get this car off the line well at the best of times anyway. Goodness knows what happens when you throw in quite a significant amount of banking. It's not, of course, as significant as what you get around the actual turns here in the trioval, but it is still fairly significant, and we'll see just how that affects everyone moving forward here. Maybe that's what Mike Pearson is thinking about at the moment as he fails to press click his mouse once to get us underway. He will do that now, and we'll finally get underway. Edwards puts it into gear, and we will be ready to go racing here. The standing start from Daytona. Let's see what happens here in the Radical Race Series. We're underway. Oh, it's a great start from Paul Crabb. He's clearly been practicing that. Seth Brown's gone backwards. Simon Edwards didn't get away greatly either. He's down to second, though, behind Paul Crabb. Seth Brown moves down the order. He's down to ninth. He's barely hanging on to a top 10 here, despite starting on the second row of the grid. A very unusual start, it has to be said, but Paul Crabb has clearly been practicing that, and he's got to the lead with no trouble at all.
Yeah, I'm wondering, though, I'm wondering whether or not he got away with a little bit of a jump there. He was very, very quick off the line. And I'm wondering whether or not that may have been a jump from Paul Crabb. I don't think he... I don't know. I'm apprehensive that he got away that completely clean. But poor old Seth Brown, he's just gone down the order like an absolute rock at the moment. He's dropped down all the way into ninth place at the moment. And literally, he's hanging on to this top 10. But this is the first one round the banking. And we can see there, the time's coming down so quick. Down to 2 tenths already. This is going to be an interesting one, whether or not Paul Crabb can hang on.
Well, the top two already getting away here. Luke Maxwell at 3/4 of a second, but Paul Crabb already forced to defend on the inside line. Simon Edwards to the outside. He won't go for it. That will allow everybody to catch up. The top 5 very much getting away from the rest right now as well. Let's not forget how famously low drag Simon Edwards' setups usually are. He'll be almost unbeatable in a straight line here, and he will certainly challenge in towards turn 1 as well. Through NASCAR 3 and 4 they'll go. He'll swing slightly high on the banking to swing back low out of turn 4. Use that little bit of gravity there to go forward. Crabb defends on the very inside on the apron. You don't see that very often. He's got to be careful coming back up here as well that he doesn't spin the car as it bottoms out. Round the outside goes Edwards, though. He'll pull that up in time. And he's through into the lead. His famously low drag setups are striking again because Paul Crabb didn't have much of an answer to that.
Yeah, not a lot of people had an answer to the person behind them there as well. Edwards did pass Crabb, Palmer past Godden, Godden past Palmer, Palmer past Godden, and Palmer past Seth Brown. So Wayne Palmer is on a bit of a mission as he's up 2 currently at the moment. But it looks like Simon Edwards has got the jump here, and as we say, with that low wing setup that he runs, it's going to be incredible and probably quite hard for anybody to try and catch him. George Gonzaga at the moment's got Mike Bousson tucked up right behind him as well as they're coming round turn 7. This is the corner that can cause problems as well. Too early on the gas and your back end's going to go round, but I think this is where everybody's going to be hanging on here. So let's see how this one works as well. Good evening, Ewan Bramer and Dan Babbage in YouTube chat as well. Darrell Taylor is another man tucked up behind Phil Jocelyn.
It's looking good right now in terms of this battle here. Darrell Taylor closing very, very quickly up towards the bus stop. Don't see too many moves here really, and maybe Taylor backing out of that one at this stage because it is still early on. We've certainly got a break in the field though. The top 5 getting away from the rest, and even then George Gonzaga can't quite hold the pace of the front 3 right now. Will it be easy for Paul Crabb to close to Edwards the way it was for Edwards to catch up to Crabb? Well, let's see here as they go down the main straight towards the tri-oval. He's certainly gaining here, and he did start at a further back distance than Edwards did on the exit of the bus stop chicane. If it's a race to the line, then I think Edwards would just about have the speed to get this one. So I'm not sure what Paul Crabb's going to really do about this, because he can't eliminate that run to the line. It's a very, very long run. I'm not sure whether starting at the front and defending from the front is better for him, or coming from behind on the last lap, because I just don't really see a way that he'll beat Simon Edwards either way.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for both of these guys, Crabb and Maxwell, unless they're running that low wing that Edwards does so famously well. I think all in all, it is going to be a difficult one for them in general. You know, we've got Bousson chopped up behind Gonzaga, then we've got a gaggle of cars, Taylor, Phil Jocelyn, Paul LeMay. Looks like he's just had a moment as well, and he's unfortunately dropped down the order. He's just been on the grass as well from Paul Godden. So it looks like Paul LeMay may have had a little bit of an incident going into the what was technically the horseshoe. So let's see how that one works out. But this best here is coming down, but it's not coming down at the rate that Edwards was on Crabb. So maybe that's where Crabb's going to struggle, but he's going to try and go at him, and once more, they're not going to run through the bus stop. Surely Crabb's just going to be looking for a better exit.
Yeah, Crab keeping his car alongside there so that Edwards had to take the compromise line, but now he was able to take the better line through, and he's almost too close here, right on the back of Simon Edwards up in front. Luke Maxwell is just sitting back and waiting to see what happens here, but Crab now very close. Is he almost too close? He can't really get that slingshot, but he will have the slipstream, and he will probably have first place as well. Maybe that is how he can win this race. It's absolutely nose to nose over the line, by the way. That will be very exciting on the final lap if we can manage it, but let's see, there's a long way to go until then. Crab goes way out wide, fastest lap of the race and all, and he will remain in second place, and that might be where he wants to stay.
Yeah, normally though, when we look at races around here, Simon Edwards goes in a little bit hot there. When we look at Daytona, it's normally Luke Maxwell's in the best prime position because of that double draft he's going to get in front. But unfortunately, now Crab's dropped back about half a second. He needs to kind of close up as best he can here, really, and try and get onto the back of Edwards before they go again. Seth Brown is another man chasing down Wayne Palmer as well. Paul Godden has just lost a place to David Beasley, and looks like he could be under attack from Phil Glover further down the order. So these guys down in 11, 12 and 13 battling away just as much as the front guys are as well. But it doesn't look like from this angle and from this current lap here, Crab's got an answer for Edwards, because Edwards' low wing, I think, is saving him a little bit, and he's managing to stay out in front unless Crab is literally, as we saw in that last lap, tucked up right behind him.
Yeah, and it's difficult to do that when he can't go alongside into the bus stop here. It's difficult to follow when you're in the same line like this. You see him losing time through there. It is pretty hard to follow. Or follow as closely as he did last time anyway. So this is going to be the problem for Crab. He's got to get alongside on the way up towards the bus stop, compromise Edwards as much as possible, and then he can try and go through and get that slingshot for the very end, because you think he's just going to run out of road for this, really. Coming to the end of lap 4, Edwards shows him inside, and it would be very close, but Crab would have the place. He ducks below the apron again. Edwards! Side by side, and there's contact there, certainly. They may even have damage, the both of them, and Luke Maxwell will get involved now. He slots up into second.
Yeah, that little bit of contact between Crab and Edwards gave Edwards a bit of an offline going into turn 1. Seth Brown is just about with Wayne Palmer, and I'll say just about because Palmer did get him, and now they've swapped back again. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these guys as well further down the field. It looks like everybody that's hanging on is hanging on from the draft, because Edwards is hanging on to the back of Maxwell now. He's got to try and get past him going out of 7, round the obviously the NASCAR, the oval part section that they go on to. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard now, and Edwards has just got to kind of put him that head down. You can see the damage on his rear left there. So I wonder whether or not that's going to affect him, but it's going to be a difficult one for Edwards now.
It is going to be difficult. I think it could be difficult for Crab here as well. I think both of them could have damage that's halting them here. Maxwell certainly backed off there to make sure he didn't go through before the bus stop, but I don't think it would be the worst thing for Maxwell to go through right now, because I think he could drop both of these drivers if he just got to the front and put his head down. I think Maxwell could blow them out the water. Out of the bus stop they go. Crab was all sorts of crushed up through there. Edwards has got a non-level rear wing now, as you may have seen in the background of that shot there, and Maxwell might well have the chance to win this race. He'll duck to the outside coming through NASCAR's 4, and he'll go up towards the line absolutely dead even with Crab. I don't even know who led that lap there. On the outside for Luke Maxwell, he won't go through, and he seems reluctant to go through as well.
Yeah, now they've got Gonzaga and Buson for company. It's now turned into a 5-way fight here. These guys have dropped this little second pack of Seth Brown, Phil Jocelyn, Paul LeMay. LeMay not having a good one. He got all out of shape at turn 4 here, they're coming down to now. And unfortunately, he's dropped down the order as well. He's down 1 place. Phil Jocelyn's up 4 currently. And obviously, Paul Crab, your leader, is up 2. But they've now got Gonzaga and Buson for company as well, and it could just turn into a 5-way swap here, backwards and forwards going down these straights, and I think they've only got this one and one more, so it's whether or not Crab's going to be able to hang on.
It absolutely is. Crab through turn 6 and out onto the banking for the penultimate time in this race. The sprint race of the two, of course, already providing the entertainment for us this evening. With Luke Maxwell closing in here once again. I'm convinced that the damage is playing a role here, because Edwards has being caught by Gonzaga as well, now up towards the bus stop, and he's having to do a bit of defending. Maxwell certainly backing off, and you can just see in the background of that shot there the sort of rear wing end plate on the left-hand side, not quite level for Simon Edwards. A little bit difficult to see on the banking because nothing's level as he goes to and has all his organs on one side. But anyway, it's the thing that happens. It will become more obvious as they flatten out again. But it's certainly affecting the both of them. Paul Crabb now on the defensive again. Luke Maxwell to the outside as they go on to the final lap. There's another dead heat between the two of them as they go over the line there. Outside line for Maxwell. It's a very long way round, but he's very late on the brakes as well. Oh, too late. Paul Crabb on the inside line will hold on to the place. Maybe that was kind of deliberate from Maxwell. Maybe he wants to be in second place going on to the final lap.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best place to be. Gonzaga's just got all out of shape. Him and Buson have made a little bit of contact. That's going to allow the run now down into turn 7. Buson's going to get him, but they have dropped away from the front three. It's going to be this fight, I think, round from 7 through the bus stop and out the other side. This is where you're going to see it. Who you're going to see, I don't know. Which way is it going to go, I can't tell you. But I think Maxwell may have the pace here if he can just hold on to the back of Crabb going through the bus stop.
And he's got to hold on to second place here as well. I know that's weird to say because normally you try and gain positions wherever you can, but he's got to hold on to second here. He's put all his eggs in this basket. The only problem with this strategy is that he hasn't really tried doing this final lap from the front, because I think he would realise that he would probably hold on if he started this final lap from the front, but he hasn't got time to test that out now. He's put all his eggs in this basket and he's gone for it. Paul Crabb throws it through the bus stop chicane with all his might to try and win this race, but it's a nice exit from Maxwell. He didn't need to do anything groundbreaking there. He didn't need to set the world on fire. He just needed a good exit. But is it good enough? This might not be closing quickly enough. Paul Crabb will drop down to the apron. It will be a nose-to-nose finish here. Maxwell chased up towards the banking. He's side by side. Oh, it's so close. Oh, my goodness me. Luke Maxwell, by the skin of his teeth, gets there ahead of Paul Crabb. Simon Edwards will round off the podium. And, I thought Maxwell had a little bit more in hand than that. I've got to say, it was a lot closer than I thought. In the end, he only just made it in time.
Oh, man, that is the end of the race we want to see here from Maxwell, Crabb and Edwards. It's just been one battle all the way through, and now they've come to this moment here. There we go, Ewan. Finishing positions are on your screen.
That's all come very quickly. Everybody quite close together. Luke Maxwell and Paul Crabb separated by 23 thousandths by the end of that race. Simon Edwards joining them on the podium with Mike Bousson getting ahead of George Gonzaga at the end there. Seth Brown back up to 6th after his poor start. He'll be starting the second race in the mid-pack as well. Paul LeMay down in 7th ahead of Phil Justin, Darryl Taylor and Wayne Palmer all in that group, and all will be starting on the front 2 rows of the second race. David Beasley, Paul Godden and Phil Glover battled for 11th further down. But I thought Maxwell, after the damage for the other two, was going to breeze past them, but in the end he left it very, very late.
Yeah, but he must have known. You know, Luke's not silly. He must have known he was going to be able to get him, but whether or not he could or not, that's the situation. So, you know, he did get him in the end, but I'm looking forward to race 2 if that's race 1. Paul Clark there in YouTube chat, amazing finish. It was, yeah, absolutely incredible. We've got 45 seconds and one more race to go. Hope you're enjoying Barcelona, Paul, as well. Bring us back something nice, you know. I want a bottle of sangria, or is it sangria? Yeah, sure it's sangria with a little the little hat on. If I can get one of them, that would be absolutely amazing. Thanks, bud.
I don't know what one of those are, to be honest. But,
oh my God! Wait. So no, I'm out in Spain in a couple of weeks, to be fair, so I could get myself one.
Okay.
But it'd be good to. I'll bring you one back, Ewan. But you know, it'd be good if you could pick us up one, Paul.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Despite me not knowing what it is, but yeah, there we are.
It's alcohol. That's all you say.
I suspected as much. But yeah, I've never had one. You might not be surprised to learn. Final few seconds of warm up, just being complete. Not too much to warm up for, really. Well, they'll still be pretty warm after that last race, I would imagine. We certainly are. And the top 10 will be reversed for the feature race. A little bit longer, of course, but a little bit more drama sprinkled within. as you may have learnt by watching the first race. Wayne Palmer will be on the front for this one with Darrell Taylor. Then it will be Phil Jocelyn and Paul LeMay. Seth Brown inside the top 5 with George Gonzaga. Mike Booston will be starting from 7th ahead of Simon Edwards. Paul Crabb and Luke Maxwell will start alongside each other as they ended the last race. David Beasley and Paul Godden will be on row 6 ahead of Phil Glover, who will be on his own on row 7. So that is the grid, and we'll see it with the experience of the standing start up here last time. We'll see if anybody can get it a bit better down this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go, to be fair, considering what it was like last time. But there we go. Lights are on.
Well, yeah, we're about to find out. The second race here at Daytona in the Radical Race Series. The banking standing start. Oh, and it's a very big slide from Paul LeMay. And that's Jocelyn going nowhere. Oh, it's a big crash. A huge crash off the start. Wayne Palmer and Darrell Taylor have got away with it, but they're the only two who have gone through that. Everybody else was caught up in it. Seth Brown and Phil Jocelyn are still spinning around in the grass like sheep on a summer's day. Round at the first corner is Mike Booston and George Gonzaga. Mike Booston's back to the pit lane. Paul LeMay's having a terrible time. He's got big suspension damage. He's sliding off to nowhere as well. I don't know where he's gone, in fact. I've lost him entirely. There he is. He's back on the road again. But what a crazy start that was. And it was all stemming from a big slide from Paul LeMay off the start and Phil Jocelyn just going absolutely nowhere from row 2.
Yeah, we can have a look back at this really quickly because it was a little bit chaotic here, and it started round about here. So
let's see. So row 2 goes nowhere. Booston goes to... We're 5 wide at one point, by the way. I'm not... So Booston goes to the apron to try and get past. I think it was Seth Brown was one of those through the middle, and maybe Gonzaga as well. And then once you're 5 wide, you're into contact. There's the banking itself is actually quite narrow. So really, when you're in an accident like that, there actually isn't many places to go to avoid an accident like that.
Yeah, but the only good thing here is Simon Edwards is up 5, and so is Paul Crabb. So here we go, battle resuming once more. Luke Maxwell is going again, but he's behind Paul Goddard this time, and Seth Brown is tucked up behind Phil Glover, who looks like he's been in the absolute wars at the moment. And unfortunately, I don't think Phil Glover's car is sitting completely straight, judging by the fact that it was a little bit of weaving going on there as well. No, he's not.
God, he's turning right to go round this left-hander here.
I know, it's almost like Lightning McQueen, turn right to go left. So
he's not coming in though. Oh, or is he? Oh, it's hard to tell really where he's aiming his car. It looks like he's got rear suspension damage to me, which is even worse than front suspension damage. George Gonzaga comes into the pit lane to repair, and I'm not surprised about that. But what a bizarre situation we have here. Wayne Palmer and Darrell Taylor currently leading. Simon Edwards has been one of those to get through it rather nicely. Paul Crabb's up there in 4th place as well. So it's not over for this race here, but I don't think, unfortunately, it's going to be played out between just Palmer and Taylor. I think Edwards and Crabb will catch up. Well, I don't want to say unfortunately, because that's harsh on them, but it would be a surprise winner and a nice surprise to see one of these two take it.
Yeah, Edwards is 2.6 seconds back at the moment. I mean, he's only got 11 laps, sorry. So he's only got 9 to go. And don't forget, he hasn't got any draft at the moment. He's got no help from Crabb behind either. So these guys can make a little bit of difference. You can see their time extending on the back run out into the bus stop. So if they keep working together and don't do this, there's an opportunity that they could extend here because they've got the draft to work with. Edwards has got nothing at the moment. So regardless of what they're doing lap time, the draft can play a big part in what they're doing. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. Maxwell is right up behind Paul Godden. Unfortunately for Paul, probably not the ideal person you want up behind you at the moment, other than Luke Maxwell, of course. So I think he's going to be clearing him, but it depends whether or not he's going to have damage from getting caught up with George Gonzaga into turn 1 there. Gonzaga did spin and they went round. Darrell Taylor looks like he's just about to try and go round the outside. Wayne Palmer holds on. Edwards has got a gap, but look at the... Oh! Palmer goes in deep, that's released Darrell Taylor. But the gap went out to 3 seconds. So they've got to work together. They can open this gap up, but they've got to do it together, Darrell Taylor and Wayne Palmer.
Right, they certainly can't battle like they just did there, and that was well. I suppose that was just Palmer going wide, but even so, Darrell Taylor was challenging in towards turn 1 anyway, and they certainly can't afford to do that really. Phil Glover into the pit lane, by the way. You won't be surprised to learn that's a repair job for him. And he'll drop down the order a little bit further. Palmer, goodness me, was all sorts of out of shape out of the West Horseshoe there as well. But Taylor currently leading this one. Had a fantastic bit of pace at VIR, but just could never convert into an actual good race result, which must have been frustrating for him. But this is as good a chance as any to try and take the victory. More than a second and a half to Simon Edwards, who is behind 8 laps to go at the end of this one. I think he is going to have time to catch up here because he was about 2.6 seconds back at this stage last lap.
Yeah, but they keep fighting. That's the problem. If they pushed along now and stayed close to each other, rather than trying to do this, like, you know, get the gap back open again. You're extending it, you're bringing it in, you're extending it. You've got to just kind of work together and try and extend the gap, because they must know that if they fight, Edwards is going to be there. And he isn't going to hang around. He's not going to sit back and be like, right, you carry on, guys, I'll just sit here. He's going to want to go for it. But they're just not helping themselves currently, which is, from my point of view, really quite frustrating, because they could have opened up a nice little tiny gap there and Edwards wouldn't have been able to get near them. But unfortunately, he's looking like now he's going to get involved with Wayne Palmer and Darrell Taylor. And Paul Clark said that up in YouTube chat as well. He's just put no words after the start.
Oh yeah, I'm not, and a roll of the eyes as well. So I don't know who he's that's aimed at. But to be honest, the start of the race was a mess. I mean, yeah, we can agree with that. But I don't know if I can pin the blame on any particular driver. Really, it was just a 5-wide moment really off the start of the race. I'm not sure what you're meant to do when an entire row of a grid doesn't really get going off of a start. I'm not really sure what you're meant to do.
No, I can't really figure out what to do. I think Maxwell tried to do the right thing and drop down onto the apron with Buson. Buson just caught the tail end of Gonzaga, and unfortunately that's put him into the pits as well. Glover's into the pits, but that really wasn't a surprise. He is back out now, but he was in there. But now these guys have got Edwards closing up behind him, and with only 7 laps left, it's going to be tough for them to keep him behind. I've got to be honest, it really is. He's going to be going for it. This is his opportunity. So I think now they're just going to struggle, and I think they probably might end up regretting this, to be fair.
Maybe. Let's see what happens. Put Wayne Palmer to the outside then of Darrell Taylor in towards turn number 1. It's pretty much the dead heat of the line. It would be Taylor on the line to lead another lap as Simon Edwards sets the fastest lap of the race so far. Down towards turn 1, let the 3 of them go. I think there's damage though on Paul Crabb's car, by the way. His gap now grows to 3.5 seconds. I just don't think he's quite got the straight line speed to catch up to these guys, and Luke Maxwell might even catch up to him as well. I'm not sure what kind of contact he had, but I think he was one of those who was stuck up on the high side at the tri-oval and maybe had nowhere to go other than get into contact a little bit earlier on. But Simon Edwards seems to have got out of it pretty well, even though he was caught up in all of the lap 1 incidents.
Yeah, he managed to he got through the whole kind of chaos of the beginning, but that could have something to do with the fact that we did a standing start as well on a banking that goes downwards. We saw a lot of cars flick to the left instantly. So it could have had something to do with that, and unfortunately everybody else just can't really control what went on after that. Probably not going 5 wide, what might have been a start of an idea, I guess. But unfortunately it's easy for us to say because we're sat up here, we're not on the track with these guys in the cars. So from that perspective, there's really, I'm sure they'll talk about it. Oh, Darrell Taylor, where you going, sir?
Oh, he needs to be careful there. He might have a slowdown penalty for that because he jumped over that last curve, which is really, and you can see him trying to pull to the high side now. I think he's got a slowdown penalty that he's trying to clear right now. If you run around the high side here, you can clear most of it, but he needs to stay in the draft here, does Darrell Taylor, or his chances of winning this race will be over. It's side by side now with Edwards and Palmer. We'll see, and Taylor's still clearing his slowdown. He really needs to do that quickly and then dive deep on the brakes. Speaking of which, Simon Edwards will do that in towards turn 1. He's got to the front. Now, is he going to be able to get away from these 2 in behind?
Yeah, I think he's going to have too much pace now for Wayne Palmer and Darrell Taylor. I don't think that's not me being disrespectful. I think it's just going to be tough for these guys to hang on here. Obviously, with the last time out as well, Palmer's lap time 1:42.4, Simon Edwards 1:41. 2:04. So obviously draft assisted lap as well, but he's going to pull out a big chunk of time. I think these guys are going to struggle. I think you can safely say if Edwards gets a good couple of clean laps in here, gets that gap out to about a second, I think he's going to be able to do it. But there are two draft zones that these guys can make use of as well, but it's just staying with Edwards. Round the twisty bit's difficult enough, so let alone try to stay with him on the straight.
I'm not sure, well, this is what we're referring to a little bit earlier on in the race, actually, or on the broadcast, I should say. This is one of those circuits where there are just enough corners for you to be able to make a difference and break the slipstream. Now, Edwards hasn't managed it on this lap, but I think he's assured that Palmer won't get near him on this particular lap as Luke Maxwell gets down the inside of Paul Crab. That just shows you what damage Crab has. You can see it on the front right, I think. That front bumper is all over the place. Maxwell will be setting his sights on the podium here and trying to limit the damage because he's just come into the day a good, 32 points behind Simon Edwards, who may even be able to take the championship lead after today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be... I don't think Maxwell will pull 3.3 over the next 4 laps, okay? I think these guys... I think this is what we're looking at the podium-wise. As long as these two here, Palmer and Taylor, don't get themselves mixed up in any form of incidents or accidents or silly moments that they don't need to chance, because, you know, they're in a prime spot at the moment to take a big chunk of points. So for their perspective, they've got to just kind of stay, and maybe Taylor can make the move on the last lap. Hopefully from, you know, watching or seeing the previous race, he might be able to do it, but they've got to be sensible, I think, because otherwise Maxwell could get on him. He's only 2.8 back there. You can see him in the back of your side of your picture as these guys are coming down into turn 7. So yeah, they've got to be careful. 2.7 maybe over the last 4 laps. Tough ask, really.
It is, but then again, Maxwell is a good driver, so you never know. I do think that is going to be too much for him, though, at this stage. We'll wait and see, of course. 8/10 of a second is now the gap for Edwards. He's very close to breaking the slipstream. Darrell Taylor still very much there with Wayne Palmer, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a race victory for either of them. Kicking up a little bit of grass, indeed, through the bus stop chicane there for Wayne Palmer. Have to be really careful of slowdown penalties through there, though, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the race. Paul Godden has got himself behind David Beasley. This is a good performance from these two after negotiating the chaos of the opening lap. Battle for 6th place with one of the drivers just behind, Phil Jocelyn, I think that is, in 11th place, 1 lap down, which we really don't see very often, but just speaks to the chaos of this race, really.
Yeah, I think the beginnings played a massive part in this, I think, as well. You know, you can't have 5 wide and take out 6 cars. It's just not going to work. Buson, Maxwell, Gonzaga, LeMay, Seth Brown was involved as well. Let's not forget Phil Jocelyn, as Paul Godden does. Not, maybe, nearly, possibly, no. Yes, no. Doesn't get through.
Too late on the brakes. He's got to be careful. Oh, through the S's there. I think he's stayed on.
Just on it.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of time though. Back to over a second, so that one looks like it's pretty much settled now. Simon Edwards is very, very close to breaking this slipstream. He's edging towards a second for the first time in this race. I think Palmer's just about going to cling on this time, but by next lap, I don't think he's going to get there. Well, even here now, he's more than a second behind, so these two could start fighting for second now.
Yeah, and it's really annoying and frustrating for us to sit back and see, because they've opened up nearly 3 seconds to Maxwell coming from the 2.7 that it was, and that was just by not fighting each other with Darrell Taylor sat behind him. So if they just did that for the first few laps of this race and got that gap out to Edwards wouldn't have been able to catch up with them, and it's just such a shame that they kind of missed the opportunity to get their first wins here. And I think both of these had that opportunity, but unfortunately here for Wayne Palmer and Darrell Taylor, they decided to go fighting earlier on, and that just wasn't the way it should have been done. But it's racing, and trying to tell racing drivers not to fight, well, good luck with that one.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I still don't think they would have been able to hold off Edwards, to be honest. I think they may have just had too much for them. Taylor looks up the inside once again there, but does... Oh, no, he's gone! Round at turn 1 for Darrell Taylor, and that will certainly settle it. Luke Maxwell will get up onto the podium as well, so there's certainly no fighting in there now. and well, it will all spread out even further now, but even so, I do think Edwards would have caught the both of them. Now Palmer's got no one to distract him. We'll see if he can stay with Edwards, but he's still got a huge job on his hands.
Yeah, Wayne Palmer's going to have a bit of a mission here. He's going to love this, of course, being up into second place, but as for catching Simon Edwards, I think that's going to be something of a bit of a mission. I'm not...
Oh no, Palmer!
Yeah.
Very close to doing exactly the same thing. That was bizarre. The two of them almost having a very similar mistake in the very same infield section.
Yeah, well, that's kind of put an end to that one. Now it's all down to Edwards to stay on track himself. If this man can hold on, it's an easy victory.
I always refrain from saying easy, to be fair, because it is very difficult. But even so, he does have quite the lead now with 2 laps to go at the line, and I think he might well become championship leader after this one as well, with Paul Crabb way down. I know Crabb gained a couple of points on him in the first race, but he's losing a load here in this one. I think he loses about 14 points there, and I think Simon Edwards will become our new championship leader, with Mike Bousson also down the pit lane and out of the race right now. He'll probably use this as one of his drop weeks, and that is a 50-point round, to be fair, so he won't be too far away. Joe Kurtz is not here today. Paul LeMay not having the greatest day. Dan Webster not here. Luke Maxwell losing points to Edwards as well. We are seeing our new championship leader, which feels bizarre to say.
Yeah, it's strange, really. I think from even Simon's point of view, he might sit back and say how lucky he managed to wiggle his way through that beginning, and how lucky he got through the incident, and then he caught them because they were fighting. You know, he's a fairly open and honest guy, and he has turned around and said before just how lucky he has been. Maybe luck's just on his side this season, because this isn't the first time we've seen this from Edwards. It isn't the first time he's caught that stroke of luck, you know, and gone on and taken the victory, and it looks like he's going to do the same again here, to be fair.
Yes, it's bizarre that he's so open he doesn't like this car, but still performs well in it. I still think it's going to be a very, very open championship, though. Oh, as David Beasley gets it wrong, Paul Godden will gain a place out of turn 7 there, or out of turn 6. Beasley will be back underway. We'll see if Seth Brown can catch up, maybe. It very much could happen in towards the bus stop, and maybe there will be a fight for 7th place, but maybe there'll be one for 2nd as well. Luke Maxwell very much closing in here on Wayne Palmer, and there's an additional 3 points on the line, 4 points on the line here for Maxwell to close in, so maybe he would just about he certainly would like to get this position. We'll see if he does as they go over the line here to start another lap. In fact, if he does get this place, he'll score the same amount of points for the round as Simon Edwards will, despite the fact that Edwards is winning this race.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see how the scores come out, of course, after this one. I don't think they're going to be very far apart if they're not drawing going into this next round, to be honest. And of course, that is at Suzuka, so yeah, there you go.
There's Wayne Palmer getting it wrong out of the International Horseshoe, and that should be Luke Maxwell up a position, and he will score the same amount of points as Simon Edwards. And by the way, that would mean he would remain 32 points behind Simon Edwards at this stage, because that's the margin he had right now. It's not very often he's been able to string a race 2 together like he has done here. Yeah,
definitely, but he's done really well. He will openly say he doesn't get much luck in race 2, but he's definitely got it now. And I think from his point of view, he'll enjoy this. He'll enjoy this. Took the victory in the sprint, 2nd place in the feature. Yeah, I think he'll be happy with that.
He will indeed be pleased with that. Let's see. Through into the final, not the final chicane, the bus stop chicane for the final time. And it will be Simon Edwards. He came across the line 3rd as he watched a side-by-side battle to the line in the first race. Luke Maxwell narrowly edging out Paul Crabb in the sprint, but in the feature, it was a very, very different race indeed. Simon Edwards going to win comfortably, score another 60 points towards his championship charge, and he will likely take the championship lead as well. He'll win at Daytona ahead of Maxwell and Palmer. Wayne Palmer on the podium here for what is, I believe, the first time in his time here at this series, although don't quote me on it. Daryl Taylor in 4th place and Paul Crabb very damaged, but still picked up 5th place.
Yeah, Seth Brown was at one point right behind David Beasley here, and I can't quite see what happened, if anything happened to Seth, but he just looked like he got the bus stop all wrong, and unfortunately drops down the order there as well. But Paul LeMay has had a dreadful night and is down in 10th place here. He's not going to be overly excited about this track, to be honest, but again, you know, he scores a good old 21 points, so let's see how it works out from LeMay once the standings come through.
Yeah, only 21 points in this round, and not too many more in the first round either. The first race, I think, well, it might well be a drop score, this one, for him. If that is the case, then he'll score 37. But if not, then he'll score whatever he scored today, which will be a little bit more than 37. We'll have to wait and see. As Phil Glover comes over the line, 12th place in the second race, to go with his 13th in the first one. But unfortunately, this one a lot more traumatic in terms of the damage that he got earlier on. It was quite severe that he had to deal with, unfortunately. But he crosses the line, and 12th place for him. Don't know if he knows the race is over. He's carrying on. We have heard from Glover in the past that he's thought the race ended a lap before it actually did, so you never know. Simon Edwards, though, race winner here at Daytona, ahead of Luke Maxwell and Wayne Palmer on the podium. Daryl Taylor and Paul Crabb both inside the top 5. Paul Godden got up into 6th late on there, with David Beasley holding on to 7th ahead of Seth Brown. George Gonzaga and Paul LeMay round out the top 10. Phil Justin and Phil Glover were 1 lap down. Mike Bousson never returned from the pit lane after that incident. 6th place in that one was Paul Godden, and he has already jumped into the waiting room for us, so we'll reward him by bringing him in very quickly indeed. Paul, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. Let's start at the start of race 2 there, because it was certainly quite chaotic. And what did you see from your perspective in that big mess on the start?
I've just about watch it back. No, it was. I started at the back of the grid, and I was expecting just to try and follow through and pick a few places up. And as everyone went, it looked like the whole field just lit the rear wheels, and they were sliding everywhere. I only missed Daryl by a matter of millimeters, and then the road just parted, and there was just enough gap between. I think it was Mike Bisson was spinning around, and I managed to get around the outside of him and had a clear run, and I think is 5th or 6th from the back. So I was quite lucky to get away with it that time round. So, and then just kept it clean, and and just tried to finish best I could, which I think was 6th or something like that. So yeah. But no, it was an interesting start for everyone.
It certainly was an interesting start. And then what do you do in a race like that afterwards? Because there wasn't an awful lot of battling going on, but you did come under a little bit of pressure at times during that race as well. So what is it like in one of these races where it's still sprint races, of course, it's really short races, but in the end it actually felt more like a longer one because everyone was so spread out. So how was that different to the usual challenge you have in a reverse grid race?
Well, it was not the way I look at it is I had Luke Maxwell come up behind me, and he's obviously a lot quicker than me. So I was going to let him through and then sit behind him, and hopefully he can pull me onto the back of Paul maybe. And then I had the guys who I've been racing with, who I know are my kind of pace. My aim is to stay in front of them, and as long as I do that, that's where my goal is. If the other guys who are a lot quicker, like a second a lap faster than me, get away, it's not the end of the world. And I just have to pace yourself, a bit like an endurance race, really, because you start pushing these cars, especially around here, you can lose a lot of time, like I found in race 1. I thought I'm going to be a bit more aggressive tonight than I have been in previous, and I just kept losing places. So that second race was all about just keeping it calm and keeping it on the track in the middle of the island and coming out with a good result, which I think I did in the end. So.
Certainly did. Paul, congratulations on a successful evening overall, and thanks very much for chatting to us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks very much. Paul Gordon there, 6th place in race 2. All, of course, behind Simon Edwards, who was the second race winner. Simon, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. First place here at the second race. But best to start at the start. I'll pose the same question to you. How did you get through that chaos quite so quickly?
I don't know. I just saw little gaps, and I just kept going for the little gaps. I got stuck to somebody on my right-hand side, and I couldn't get off them, which only did aero damage. So I was just, I didn't think I was going to catch those first two actually, because I thought, oh, the aero damage is going to keep me back. But I crept up to them and then they let me pass by, screwing up the chicane. But yeah, that start was was a bit crazy.
We're just watching a replay from your on board right now. I'm not entirely sure how you got through it all either, if I'm honest with you, after watching that. My goodness. Well, sometimes the sea's part for you, I suppose. I guess next week you'll be on the wrong side of these kind of things. I don't know. But I want to go back to race one quickly as well, because there was a good battle between you and Paul Crabb. Luke Maxwell was there as well, up inside the top three. It was exactly what you'd expect from a race at Daytona. But I've got to say, did that contact with Paul at turn one affect your straight line speed a little bit? It seemed like your car was a little bit damaged after that.
Yeah, but the top speed was gone completely. I took a screenshot to show Paul, look what you did to my car. And I got that horrible message, you have wheel damage. But I didn't get a black flag, so I just had to be really careful around the right-handers. And I just used the draft just to keep me in third place. I knew I couldn't get to them. But I just wanted to stay in the draft so that I could defend that third place, which is all I did in the end, not too bad. I was risking it on the outside there, so sometimes that happens.
Yeah, I'm picking up the points. It's what you need. Just before we let you go, Simon, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just the league members, I think, today. This isn't a great track, but people have still turned up. But we've got some good tracks coming up. I'm sure we'll get a bigger grid in those as well. But let's keep this league going. It's a nice league.
Yeah, absolutely is, and we're by the way moving away from America from now on as well. We've had a lot of American circuits so far. No more, if in case that's not your thing. So there we are. But Simon, congratulations on the win here in race 2, and thanks very much for chatting to us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Simon Edwards there, scoring 60 points on the day, as did Luke Maxwell with a first and a second. First in race 1, second in race 2. Luke, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. That end to race 1 was quite exciting for you, though. Quite exciting for us as well. Just tell us about that last lap.
Yeah, hi guys. Long time no speak. It was that last lap. I just could see them kind of. I thought if they're a bit stuck behind Simon, then they're just going to grow that gap, and I didn't have the straight line pace because of a bit of damage on lap 1 to try and make the gap. But just trying on the infield, really, I was really pushing to try and make up the gap there, so I could get in the tow, and eventually it kind of paid off and managed to get there. I was thinking last lap, just nail the bus stop, don't mess that one up, and I should be okay, because I could see I think he was 9.9 behind me, and I was thinking, oh crikey, by the time we get past the bus stop, it could be like half a second, and then with the speed difference, off he goes. So luckily I managed to keep the gap there. It was all good in the end.
Yeah, and race 2 was a decent one as well. You still managed to get up into second position in the end, and on the day you will score the same amount of points as Simon Edwards, if my maths is correct. So how are you feeling about the championship now? Because I feel like the drop rounds are maybe worsening your score probably more than anybody else's, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, to be fair, it's been a terrible season for me this one along the way. There's been a few good results, but no good feature results. So all the feature races for me have been bad for either my fault or bashed into someone or not at the pace. So it's I guess slightly adjusting to this car maybe from the SR10, but I haven't written the championship off completely, but I'm kind of doing it more for the fun of every week at the minute, not focusing on the championship.
Absolutely. I mean, we have certainly noticed that up here, that you've been struggling in the feature races. What is it about those ones that you particularly? Is it just a coincidence, really, more than anything, or is there something actually happening?
I think partially I've just had a bad run. I've had the pace. I've been doing well in qualifying and the sprint races, and then features just with the start in the field. A little bit unlucky, a couple of mistakes of my own, and that's kind of every race in the bin, really. So just got to kind of stick with it, keep my head up, and carry on, really. So we'll see how we go for the next few weeks. Where are we next week?
At Suzuka, we're at next week. Fan of Suzuka?
Not really. to be fair, I don't really like Daytona either. So
Okay.
Could work out well.
Exactly. Well, you never know. We'll have to see. Just before we let you go, Luke, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just the guys running the league and you guys broadcasting. Excellent job. It's a great league to be in, and everyone gets on well and helps each other out. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke, we'll look forward to seeing you next week, and maybe circuits you don't like it prove to be good news. We'll wait and see. But we'll see you next week. Thanks for chatting to us.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thanks very much, Luke Maxwell, there with a first and a second on the evening. And finally, we've got time to talk to Phil Glover as well. Welcome to the booth, Phil. Good to have you here. Not the most successful evening for you, unfortunately. Race 2 was unfortunately not going your way either, but then again, you weren't the only one caught up back there. Tell us a little bit about tonight and how it's been.
Yeah, there's probably not an awful lot to say about race 1. I had a bit of fun actually at the back. I think we a couple of us changed places a couple of times, so that was okay. That was fun. The second race, I virtually started on tickover because I thought everybody's going to probably bin up and slide down, so I didn't do that, and I had a pretty good start because of that. But unfortunately, everybody had quite a few people had a problem in front of me and sliding down, etc. So I ended up clipping somebody that made me go into the exit of the pits or something. So it said not only I got damage, I also had to go into the pits to serve a penalty. And then I've not actually been into the pits really on here. So I went round the lap thinking, I wonder where the pits are. And I pulled in what I thought it was, but it didn't. It just sort of put me back out onto the track. So I had to go around again. And then when I got in the pits, after all that, it decided I must have not checked the fuel thing. So it decided to put, it ended up putting 45 litres into what I already had. So I left the pits with 65 litres or something. So he didn't drive very well.
Okay, I wonder if that's the autofill feature there.
It was exactly that. But I thought I'd cleared it on the grid, but I obviously haven't.
Well, I mean, it's been causing chaos, that feature. I've got to say, it's better than the other way around I experienced 2 nights ago, where it was not filling people up with enough fuel and everyone ran out. So there you are. That's a different story for another time. Moving forward, Phil, we're moving away from the American circuits now. We're at Suzuka next week. How are you feeling about the second half of the season?
I like Suzuka. It's a bit of a challenge that after that long straight, those first 2 corners, but the rest is a lot of fun. So better hopes for that one.
We'll look forward to it. Phil, before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Well, just as normal, you guys and the guys that organise the league, and actually all the drivers, because it's great fun. Even if you're not doing very well, it's still great fun.
Absolutely. Phil, thanks very much for joining us again, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, guys. Bye.
Right, there we are, Phil Glover chatting to us there, and that will just about do it for us here this evening. James, it's been a good evening of racing. A broadcast of 2 halves, I would say. A very exciting end to the first race, and a slightly bizarre second race, it must be said.
Yeah, we watched the starts from the drivers who we just talked to as well. Phil, unfortunately, him and Mike went into the wall, and he was coming back, and Phil hit him, and then Gonzaga went off as well, and was rolling backwards into Luke Maxwell. So it was all a little bit scrappy, but they all managed to get, the front people who got through needed to get through. I think, though, from Darrell Taylor and Wayne Palmer's point of view, I think they'll rue not working together over the first few laps of the feature. I think they had a great opportunity to extend the gap over Simon Edwards rather than fighting. But it is what it is. It's all done now and dusted, and there's not a lot they can do about it. So onwards and upwards to Suzuka.
Well, there isn't a lot they can do about it now. Personally, I think Simon Edwards was inevitable in that race, to be honest. And there's not a lot that anyone could have done to beat him. But we'll never know. We will never know what would have happened. Either way, we are indeed moving away from the American circuits now. It's been the last 6 out of the last 7 weeks we've been in the United States, but we will not be returning. It's to Japan next and Suzuka for the next round, followed by Spa, Bathurst, Imola and the Nordside, of course, for our traditional finale. I hope you'll join us for those, and make sure you stick around on JPB because there is a lot more racing coming up over the next few days and the next few nights, so make sure you subscribe. And don't unsubscribe, please, because we've just reached 1,000 subscribers, so we'd like to keep that and not go below, if you don't mind. But yeah, make sure you join us for those. Yeah, thanks very much for tuning in tonight. That's it for us, though. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside James Parfitt here for this evening, and until we see you next week at Suzuka, it's goodbye for now.
Go.